Hey, welcome. It's Brian, and welcome to Adventurous Music Fridays. Every Friday, we do a different record to either hopefully expand your listening background or, at least start a dialogue about what you like, what I like, and talk about different players. Pretty much always going to have a guitar player in it. There'll be some exceptions, of course. But I'd love to get a dialogue going about your favorite players and kind of introduce others to some of my favorite music. As you know, if you've watched the channel, I do mostly reactions, and that's been really incredible. But what I found is the certain people that love this band, for the most part, that's what they're there for. There's no crossover into other things. So my idea is just talk about some of my favorite records, hopefully bring you into my world a little bit, talk about some of my favorite players, some of my favorite records, and hopefully you go out and listen to them and we kind of get going and start maybe some kind of dialogue in the comments, maybe not, whatever, but maybe turning some people onto some new music that isn't from today, or it could be, I don't know, could be from 50 years ago or 100, who knows. So anyway, with that said, today we are doing the incredible record by Kenny Garrett. This is a tribute to John Coltrane. And what is it called? It's called Pursuance, which is a Coltrane piece. And on this record, we have Brian Blade, Pat Metheny, Rodney Whitaker, and some of Pat Metheny's best playing of recent. Now, when I say recent, this record's from like the 90s, and Pat Metheny has done many amazing records, but I love him on this record. And I love him on even the Joshua Redman record. I forget what that one's called, but it's first solo record. Some of Pat's best playing. This record came out in 96. This is when I bought the record. I bought it brand new. And I've always been a huge Coltrane fan. My interest has shifted from that like early 60s stuff to more the modal kind of thing to towards the end of his life, kind of the more avant-garde, experimental, however you want to say it. Those records are my favorite of Coltrane's. Anyway. So on this record, we have Countdown, Equinox, an incredible modal piece. If you know Coltrane, you know that one. Liberia, Dear Lord, Lonnie's Lament, an incredible piece. I love that song. That's a great one. After the Rain, Like Sunny, Pursuance, and my favorite, for the most part, Coltrane piece, Alabama. We'll talk about that in a second. Giant Steps, and then there's Latifa. So anyway, Kenny is an alto player, so it's a little different in sonority or whatever that word is for, the kind of timbre of the saxophone, but he is an incredible player. And with this band, they really deliver. It's like a modern, take on the pieces with guitar and all of that. But with Pat Metheny on guitar, he really, it's just a great blowing record. Lots of great solos from everybody. And one of my favorite tribute records, and there's not a lot I've had, so as far as in the jazz realm. So I really have always loved that record, and it really stands out and still holds up. What I was going to say about Alabama, a pretty political piece, obviously, kind of emotionally charged for sure, and you hear that in the first half of the song. What's interesting about the song is that specific song of Coltrane's is like that first part. I wish he would have never, because they play this kind of the melody essentially, and then go into some changes where there's some solos. And let me know what you think about that song if you're familiar with it. Or even the recording of this. I kind of prefer, in a way, this recording because that solo section kind of brings it to life in a way, whereas at least the one or two recordings I've heard of Coltrane playing the song, most beautiful piece ever, that first half. And then when they go into the changes, it kind of breaks the rhythm of that amazingly somber intro. And then they kind of do, it's kind of a weird, abrupt thing. And if I'm correct, I forget who the drummer was on that recording of Alabama. I think it's Roy Haynes, or maybe not. I'll have to look that up. I don't remember. But it just kind of breaks the continuity of this amazingly beautiful and somber intro or melody. And they kind of, if I remember right, I think they kind of recap it a little bit towards the end. But I thought that would be the perfect piece if they just did that first part. And I think there's been some live recordings and stuff like that. So anyway, if you're familiar with that song, please chime in. But when we have Equinox, that's just a great kind of blues with a great melody. Amazing piece. Lonnie's Lament, another great one, like I said earlier. So they picked some really interesting pieces. The only two that I would say are kind of an homage, or, like kind of a, you got to have a hit kind of thing, is Giant Steps and Countdown. Although Equinox is probably up there too. But the song selection's really cool. Very varied and kind of throughout his career. And just a really thoughtful and an actual tribute to John Coltrane. Lots of tributes are a record label trying to grasp, or at least back then when records sold, we're trying to, get just another record out, and what do you do if your catalogs needs another hit or whatever? You do a tribute to Led Zeppelin. And out of all those tribute records, whether it's rock or jazz, there's very few that I think really hold up all the way through, and this is definitely one of them. And as important as John Coltrane was to the world, and unfortunately left us way too early, and had a lot more work to do for sure, I think this is a great tribute to him and in the spirit of his playing. And these guys were pretty young then. I mean, this is from 96, so what are we talking about, 30 years? So, even Pat Metheny was semi-young then. So I just love their approach on this. And by the way, Brian Blades is the drummer, an incredible drummer if you know drums and jazz and all of that. So he really makes it happen on this as well. Please go check out this Pursuance record. It's by Kenny Garrett. It's probably who it's under, is Kenny Garrett. It's his band. And it's a tribute to John Coltrane. That's the record of the week. Thanks for joining me. Let me know what you think of this whole series of Fridays Adventurous Music. I really want to push people to kind of listen outside of their norm and try things that they may or may not like, but like kind of basically opening their listening kind of background as far as what they listen to. I know it's not going to work for everybody, but again, these are all my favorites, so it's definitely a very individualistic, a personal kind of approach to it. My hope is that you find some records that you love and kind of opens your view of music and different players and different types of music. And obviously not all of it's going to work for everybody, and I totally get that. Not everybody listens to tons of different kinds of music. It's just the way it is. For me, as a young person, I listened to anything that had guitar on it, number one, and, just kind of went from there. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and please comment.